Welcome, welcome. How do you do?
All right, brother.
Glad to be here. Yeah. You know.
Talk to me, brother.
Glad to be back in Harlem, and especially Harlem. Bit of history on Harlem, which is always special. If you go to most cities around the country, this is one of the only cities where the northern part of the city, or the upper part, is inhabited by black people. When you come to Atlanta, the black people are downtown, the rich and white people are uptown. The whole concept of uptown is something that's centered around your upper echelon of folks.
Okay.
So why is it that Harlem ended up uptown and downtown is where all your richest stuff is? In New York, it's backwards. Because New York, just like any other place, was designed, and especially Harlem was designed for rich white folks. Rich white folks, it was coming over from Europe. And the story goes that they made this the fountainhead of New York. Some of the architecture of the buildings and things was reserved for the rich European aristocracy, the rich European ruling class that was coming over in the early part of the 20th century, and somehow Europe fell into a slight recession for a few years. And when it fell into this recession, it kind of put things on hold with a certain elite group of Europeans coming over. So as a result, the people who finance these great neighborhoods of Harlem decided that they got a little desperate. About like America is now, with this housing thing that's going on. You've been hearing about all these, the housing and the real estate stuff, But they got a little desperate, and somebody sold to a few black families. Sold Harlem to a few black families. And it's like anything else, there goes the neighborhood. The rich elite people canceled the deal with the men. And once they let these black families in, all of Harlem went to black families because that's the only people that they could sell. But they promised that although Harlem was great fountainhead, it fell to the Negroes, that they would never sell black people the real estate. You could live in it. You could even have a famous world icon, a famous world oasis that we know Harlem is, but never sell the architecture or the real estate to black people. And therefore, you'll always be on a subordinate level because you don't own that. So you can live in Harlem, and Harlem is attributed to black people. Harlem is, when you think of Harlem, you think of black people. That's right. But we never owned Harlem to this day. And interestingly, because another story about Harlem is the story of Calvin Klein. He revolutionized the jeans in the late 70s, early 80s. And his name became huge. Calvin Klein is one of the biggest designers of an era. And yet Calvin Klein got started off of black people in Harlem. I'm not talking about like Tommy Hilfiger. They going and buying their clothes. No. Tommy Hilfiger, they just loved his clothes. They bought his clothes and made him this rich guy. Which in turn he did turn around and with Russell Simmons they got together and he helped him launch his clothing line. But I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about a fashion empire that Calvin Klein started, and black people never really could afford his clothes other than the jeans. And most black people couldn't afford them. But the story goes that Calvin Klein had another partner, another friend. And this friend was in the business with him. They was down in New York, and they never really could get they couldn't get a foothold on it as far as the financing and really get launched. A couple of years, this got disenfranchised and headed on up to his father to go to work for his father. Meanwhile, Calvin Klein stuck it out until he started getting this notoriety of this fashion designer, but still didn't have the money to launch his career or launch his empire, make it big. Until he turned to the same friend that he started out with in the fashion industry, and the friend had the means to help him. You see, the friend who went to go back and work with his father had one ace in the hole. His father owned a store in Harlem, selling goods and services to black people, and made so much money to, when Calvin Klein turned to his friend, the friend was able to make good based on the money that the father gave the friend, so that the friend could go back into business with Calvin Klein and have that much money that they could start Calvin Klein's line. It must have enough money to be that famous to the rest is history. We know who Calvin Klein is. Because his launching of his career was extremely successful. But the key here is Calvin Klein owes his career to Harlem, because it was the money that black people gave his father, that they put in the business, gave his friend's father, that they was able to launch Calvin Klein, one of the biggest designers.
But here's the thing.
Based on the money that the father gave the friend, so that the friend could go back into business with Calvin Klein and have that much money that they could start Calvin Klein's line. It must have enough money to be that famous to the rest is history. We know who Calvin Klein is. Because his launching of his career was extremely successful. But the key here is Calvin Klein owes his career to Harlem, because it was the money that black people gave his father, that they put in the business, gave his friend's father, that they was able to launch Calvin Klein, one of the biggest designers.
But here's the thing, Brother Bobby. Every time we make it big, we always have to sell out. Calvin Klein sold his name to the Jew.
And in the irony,
see, when white people see us making money off of something, they always have to have their hands in it. So just like you got Calvin Klein and the rest of all these other name brand clothes, like Michael Jordan even sold his name, Magic Johnson sold his name, making people think that's his theater, when he's there using his name to get black folks to go and support him. We think we supporting black.
Well, it's always, whether it's white or black, it's always something that we end up being the workhorse of the bottom line. Or something that it's just like you can tell me today when you look at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, I know doggone well that this man who's a gas station attendant came up with some recipe. No, he got those recipes from black folks.
That's right.
See what I'm saying? So here goes again with the Calvin Klein incident, how money, just like the Koreans and everything else, how money can be made in this community and taken right out of the community. Well, I just wanted to just add that type of thing. And the other thing too, in the irony of it is they had a big building here in Harlem. On one of the sides of the buildings, they have the big